A forward fire is a fire going with the wind, and those can move it pretty fast or pretty slow. It just depends on the wind speed. A backfire doesn't really matter how fast the wind's blowing against it, it will still only accomplish about a foot every 2 minutes. So a backfire is predictable. And to be on the back side of on an unburnt side of a backfire is pretty safe. But your forward fires can get you in trouble. You think you can get across that before something happens, you sprain your ankle, whatever, you don't make it, it will overcome you at some point. And they change speeds a lot. Try to stay particularly out from unburnt places in front of a forward fire. It needs oxygen, it needs fuel, and it needs heat, which it'll already have the heat. But you can do different things. If you step on it, you're taking the oxygen away. You can't get oxygen under your boots, so it'll go out. When you rake, you're generally dealing with fuel. So if the fire's there and we rake it, we're taking the fuel away from it and it can't burn. Now if you're rake into the black, you're raking the fuel and the burning stuff into the black where it just goes out. If you rake the other way, you're propagating your problem. If you're raking into unburnt stuff, if it's on fire. If it's not on fire, you can make a fire line like he went around, and that's good. Oh, leaf blowers are a great tool and are a terrible tool. So with a leaf blower, you can take the heat out of fire. You're actually blowing hard enough, not only can you move fuel, but you just put enough cold air in there, you actually physically take the heat out. So they're great tools for like relief. You can't hardly get one blow. Sometimes you can get one blowed out, but a lot of times a leaf blower guy, he can say we're fighting a forward fire, it's got out, it's on this side of the road, it's wanting to go that way. A lot of times we can take that leaf blower and blow into it and lay that fire down. And so it's too hot for me to get close enough, but if you blow cold air on it, you cool it off enough, then I can get in there and rake. Right, so we use it that way some. It's good for a head. What it will get you in trouble on is they're great about kicking a leaf up that's on fire and it floats over a 30 foot and lights another spot. They're also bad about getting your trees. They got a knot hole. They send a lot of embers and burning leaves up, and you'll catch more trees on fire with a leaf blower than just using rakes and stuff. But they are handy for that.
So this is just like a strategic tool.
Usually it's an ahead tool. Yeah, going ahead of the fire and making a line. We always have one burn boss, and that's the one person that's going to call the shots. That way you don't get mixed signals where somebody tells you go check the backfire and then somebody else tells you nobody checked the backfire type thing. We light this. When we feel like a part of it's safe, we're going to move on. And this will happen foot by foot down this hill. Well, some points you get out of sight and you want to know, you go back and you check your back line to make sure it didn't cross somehow. Wind blew a leaf across, is on fire. Another thing, particularly in the woods, like that tree there is a dead ash tree. We'll probably won't catch. But if there's a squirrel nest in a hole and it catches on fire, at some point it's going to burn down. If it falls across your fire line, then your fire's out. So you're always sending people back, go check the backfire, and they'll go back and check and make sure it ain't crossed the line. Because if you can catch it when it just crosses, no problem. When you catch it in 15 acres is on fire, big problem. Fire's hot.
Gloves are handy.
Gloves are handy. I don't have any.
Big hats handy.
Big hats, protect your ears.
Don't wear plastic.
Use it to shield your face. Don't wear windbreakers, stuff like that that'll melt and stick to you. Breaking one of the rules, these right here, I'll probably have a hole burn out in my pants because that's gonna light really easy. Those little frills and frays. Leather boots. Handy if you got facial hair. Right before your skin burns, you'll smell burnt hair. And then you know you're hot. Watch for wind, and that's part of the burn boss thing. You gotta be watching the wind because it could be blowing this way and we're working hard to keep across this line and everybody knows what they're doing, but then the wind changes and next thing we're over here trying to save Brian's camper because the headwind changed. So you gotta watch all that. I've seen burns, like big burns where we was doing 300 acres. Before you got around it, the wind entirely changed. You run to the other side now and you're trying to get the backfire in because the forward fire's coming, and the only way you can stop 300 acres is get that in first. Sometimes that works, sometimes it don't. So you watch them wind changes. The easiest rule to follow, and the one that'll get you in trouble the most when you break it, we're controlling, as long as we're doing well and it's controlled, our biggest control is never light more than you can handle. And the tricky thing there is get to rolling along and it's going pretty good, and you start getting more efficient. You start thinking, well, I'm gonna maximize this. I'm gonna light 2 more foot than last time. And it works. And then you light 4 more foot. And then that wind gust comes and you needed 4 foot less than what you had. And now it
So it's
can
important
get
to not have too much fun.
Yeah, don't light more than you can put out. That is an easy rule. Another thing to do when you're fighting fires is kind of watching your wind. Before it was blowing this way, now it's that way. There is a time to fight fire and there's a time just to sit back and let it change. You know, what you can't put out 1 minute will darn near go out on its own if the wind switches. So it's hard whenever you're panicking it's out, but realize you're going to do this all day. And when you don't have enough fuel to make a real line, you light around like that just to kind of get something you feel safe. Go good. I mean, you got enough fuel we're gonna be able to burn. The wind's gonna be pretty lazy, so getting around it so that it doesn't get to 4 o'clock before it burns the center out is gonna be kind of gonna be important. We're doing fine on time.
Yeah.
Watch CIL kick some leaves up that float over. That's what I mean by checking that they'll land over there where you don't want them on fire. So we'll probably, I check, like where I told you can quit putting it out.
Yep.
Next time we check back, we'll probably just check up to there.
Yep.
And call that good. I think I'm gonna light a little triangle here.
Yep.
Just kind of thicken up this corner so we don't have to worry about it at all.
Yep.
Because the wind up this creek, if it's gonna jump anywhere, you've got way more wind here than you do up there in the tree.
Yeah.
So I'll burn around on this a little bit, and then we'll probably go back top and start going down towards your camper. And I'd say here we won't have a bit of issue just looking. So the easy way to actually put it out is to stand here on the back side. You're just kind of flipping what you rake back into the fire itself. When you really get to fighting fire, this is pretty easy. But the guy up front, he's experiencing the most heat. So if we get one out and we're really trying to rake it and put it out and it's burning like that, you line up and you get probably me to Brian apart. And the guy that goes through first, he's just knocking it down, trying to get some of it put out. The second guy's trying to get what he misses. Third guy gets them finished. And it puts you in a line. When the guy in the front gets too hot, he'll just turn out and go to the back. And then you got a new guy in the front, and his job just moves up. And that gives the guy in the back a chance to cool off. And what'll get you a lot of time, it's like, you know, you're anxious, you're ready to go, and there'll be a little bit of fire, and it just fuse you back up and go right around at the end. We still got our line going around through there. The fire's all on that side. And we don't have any flames really leaping for the line. They're leaping up. What you have to watch if the wind really blows, and part of that is that fire in the back, it's sucking this that way. Our smoke up here is pretty well laying flat. So your embers or whatever would be pretty well going flat. But when we got 2 fires, it's pulling it together and it's up and over. And if you really get the wind blowing, you get them flames laying down and licking the ground, and then they won't jump your fire line. They get to rolling. And we're not having any of that.
Yep.
So our main concern really is like if that leaf's on fire that's landing over here, from that, catching some dry grass or another leaf, or that brush pile would be a good place for one to lodge in there that's on fire. And then it'll just lay there glowing until the wind hits it right. We might be way down there and then it turns into a fire. That's your big concern at this point, is just those embers and where they're landing. What's getting you is like right here, you got enough fuel continuity, it's continuous enough that it'll burn, and then you get just right over there and you just, for 4 feet you ain't got enough. And then over there you got plenty again. But if it goes out here, it doesn't get to there. So that's the hard part. Hardest thing is just, you know, notice them bands up through there, you'd have good thick oak leaves. And then you get in a thick band of cedars and you got more needles and it's not one to burn. So it goes out, but then right above that there's oak leaves. So it's just a matter of getting enough what you can lit. The cedar tree needles, I don't think, like here, where it ain't one to burn, that you got a seed bed, you're fine.
Yeah.
Disturbance from the hogs or raking or whatever would be great.
Yeah.
But you've got a seed bed whether it burns or not.
Yeah.
There, you're already, you know, you're
That's good to go.
Yep, you just need a little rain, which I've done a lot of these, especially you get up in the spring and you're trying to plant, and you're trying to burn, and you're dry enough to burn leaves today, just not quite, your days are short,
Yep.
and so they don't dry out. You know, you had frost probably this morning.
Yep.
Or at least dew. And so you're drying that off in the thick shade and under the leaves still. So I've seen a lot of these type fires when you're trying to get things planted, that you do exactly what we're doing. Every inch of it you can go around and get to burn helps you. You got a bunch of rocks here, I'm sure rocks under that. You might get an Indian grass there and one here instead of 50 in that spot.
Yep.
But the ones you get will grow plenty fine and healthy. Actually, glades have a lot of usually really good soil on the soil. What they have ain't wore out, it ain't been cropped to death. Because you could have mineral nutrient deficient dirt 3 feet deep and not be able to grow anything. You know what I mean? And as you graze this, or you get your natives established, you get to grazing it, it'll do significantly better just in a couple of years.
Yeah.
With you'll start adding topsoil, you'll start rolling those rocks around with foot traffic.
Yeah.
You'll get them roots going 3-4 foot deep down through the cracks.
Yeah.
Whole plants will go for the sky. Usually even the high pH or low pH, either one, I mean, unless it's extreme, the natives are gonna do fine. And I don't even really know what extreme is because we don't ever test anything. But I've never seen them not come on, and I've never seen them not come on and somebody said, well, I tested it and it was too high or low a pH. I know they got recommendation ranges, but everything in the Ozarks where we're at seems to be fine. Larry is kind of funny, he worked for NRCS and he could really read a soil survey a lot better than I can. And he was looking at some of ours that we take. He said, I've never seen pHs so balanced anywhere in Arkansas or Missouri. And we got talking to him. Of course, he's used to more acid. And what it comes down to is we are putting nitrogen fertilizer on. So we've got pretty balanced pHs. We're like 6.2, 6.3 pHs. And he said, I've never seen anything like that. A lot of these like this, now they'll sprout back. But as long as you got that cambium layer at all, they say like 130 degrees, and see that there? When I bend it over, it just pops away. And that is a sure sign you killed him, at least on that side. If I do it that way, he might have had a little living bark left right here. But 3/4 way around, you killed him. Which means basically he's done. Now, the more you thin it, the better chance a half sick, half diseased tree might live. But with the canopy, he don't have a chance. He didn't hardly have a chance when he was healthy. Now you kill half, 2/3 of his stump, he'd never get sunlight enough to support the roots, and then he'll die.
He'll just rot on out, fall over, and that'll be the end.
Yep. Now he'll probably sucker back. He'll be another one right here get down below the ash line, he'll probably send one up. And next year it'll be this big. So it's just, he's probably 3 years old, maybe 4 year old sapling. He's okay on that side, and he's popping free on that side, so he's dead on the upper side. See how that bark separating?
Yep. So even if it doesn't kill every little sapling outright, it weakens them significantly.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Easy peasy.
Now you get into your bigger trees, you haven't done anything to him. Even though he got hot enough, you actually burnt some bark and turned to ash there. But that bark, this ain't your favorite tree, is it?
No.
That bark, we aren't even down to the live wood till you get to there. So we haven't put enough heat into him to kill, to even fire scar him.
So even when it comes to managing a forest, you can use fire to great effect, even if you're not converting it.
You can use fire. You can't, what you get into, and if you notice, the black on these is all on the uphill side, which also happens today to be the upwind side. But what you get as that fire comes up, I'll just light you one. As that fire comes up, there's not much heat right now on the front of this tree. The wind's hitting it, the flames are coming up against it, but you're fine. Where you get into trouble, get back there, you see them little swirls?
Yep.
It is forcing heat right up along the bark of that tree, and the wind's what's causing that. And when you force that wind up against the bark of that tree, you could, if you had enough fuel, you'll fire scar him here and you'll fire scar him there. This is going to be fine, but you'll get enough heat against them to fire scar them on that upper side. If you look, every tree's got a dark spot on the upper side where it swirled that wind around. Now this wasn't a big enough fire to fire scar much. If you want to burn through something, let's say you are trying to go some logs, but you're wanting to burn through it, a lot of times light it at the top of the hill and let it backfire into the wind, and you'll get a lot less damage. What you really get as the fire races up is all that curling around the front side. If it's backing down, when the wind starts curling around the back side, it's already burning out in front of the front side. So then you don't get any, get as much damage. And it's just so counterintuitive. We think it's fire so deadly and terrible and just destroys everything. And you can tell this place burned pretty well continuously. And you've got these sedges in here that you haven't much more than just basically burned the tips off. And those will be just like any other grass that's been grazed. They're just gonna keep right on growing. They'll be growing back tomorrow. Over here you got a poverty grass, which has these light little curly leaves. This is what he looked like before he was burnt. And this is what he looks like after. And you really, some of this green is gonna turn brown from the heat, but most of it's, you haven't changed it at all. Just burning the old growth away. So you kind of see how this whole snag is dead and the outer layer is kind of punky. It's caught on fire. This one's out in the middle of our burn, so it's no real issue. It just kind of burn up, may even fall over. But what you get into, if that's by your fire line, is see that flame up there, and when the wind blows, you'll start blowing embers and ashes that may land over 15 feet. And if that 15 feet's on the other side of your fire line, you're constantly sprinkling hot stuff over that it might or might not catch. Then at some point, if it burns off, whether it falls over your fire line, which if it does, it's an obvious problem, now you got fire on the other side. But even if it falls away from your fire line, as that thing falls, it will be shedding embers and ashes. And when it hits the ground and does that bounce, it's gonna throw sticks and bark, and some of it may go across your fire line. So if these are anywhere near our fire lines, whenever we're burning, we'll usually come through the chainsaw and just cut him down before we leave. Because you don't want to wake up in the middle of the night and find out your tree finally fell over and your fire got out. So a lot of times we'll cut them. Of course, be careful with your chainsaw. It's a gas 2-cycle motor, and that gas tank does have a vent on it. I've never seen one catch, but do keep it in mind. It's a poor place to, plan your cut. Don't get your hung in the burning tree and then have to go get your other saw. Well, so we're finishing up Brian's burn here he's burning to prepare a seed bed to start doing his seeding, and then he's going to cut some more trees after this, rough the ground up a little bit, dragging the trees out from this point. But these trees that he got cut here, we've got most of them burned, and it's patchy burn. We figure we probably got 80% coverage by fire. And the places, of course, that didn't burn have a lot less leaf litter and probably a good enough seed bed, especially with a little bit of raking or dragging of other trees across them. So all in all, I think we've had a successful burn. The cedar tree trash you see here is fairly bare ground under it and couldn't carry a fire across underneath there, so it didn't burn up, and the leaves or the needles of the cedar tree are up high enough, you're going to get filtered sunlight down through that as the year goes by. So I wouldn't really worry about doing anything with that. And so I'd say you're off to a good start. We had a pretty safe burn with wind stayed pretty calm, pretty well stayed out of the southeast most of the day. So that made that pretty easy, and consistent wind direction, pretty good uphill movement of fire helped it burn. Humidity was a little higher than I'd like, letting the fire burn as consistently. Some pockets went out that would have burned with less humidity. And Brian had pre-installed a fire line around there by raking the leaves back, just making a 3-4 foot wide path where there wasn't any leaves. That made it really easy for us just come in here and basically light and walk. A few little problem areas we watched or raked out, but made for a nice easy burn. This has been Colt Hamilton with Hamilton Nave Outpost. We really enjoy helping teach people and show you how to do this kind of stuff. If you've enjoyed this video, check out some of our others on YouTube and follow us on Facebook and our website.